Times. Today's stories. Italy's Veneto region is battered by storm. Macron says he has immense pride in a New Caledonia vote for France.
Le seul vaincu est la tentation du mépris, de la division.
Iran marks the U.S. Embassy siege on the eve of sanctions. An analyst says President Trump's election is a catalyst for women running in midterms.
We should be sort of normalizing this type of increase in women's political presence by saying, look, this is yet another year where we're seeing gains for women.
Ted Cruz rallies women and Hispanics in a final midterm push.
Much of her career as an educator, as a teacher, as a principal. She spent a lot of years also as a healthcare professional.
Plus, Canada's I Am Joseph cast and crew share their journey to the EVM Awards International 2018. Hello everyone, I am Ace Ramirez, bringing you stories from around the globe, and this is Eagle News, Washington, D.C. Drone footage from Belluno in the Veneto region of northern Italy shows the extent of damage caused by the storm sweeping the country, flattening huge areas of trees covering the mountains in the Dolomites range. Rescue services said Sunday floods killed 10 people, including 9 members of a single family, around Palermo on the southern Italian island of Sicily, raising the week's toll across Italy to 30. They said the bodies of 9 people, including children aged 1, 3, and 15, were found in their house in Castelgiacca next to a small river which had burst its banks. According to the AGI news agency, or Agenzia Giornalistica Italia, 3 other members of the same family were able to escape. In a separate incident, a 44-year-old man was found dead in his car near Vicari. He had been trying to reach the service station. He managed to help a colleague trapped there. A passenger in the car was missing. Earlier this week in Sicily, floods closed many roads and mayors ordered shut schools, public parks, and underpasses. Italy, especially in the north and around Venice, has been hit by a series of strong storms, claiming some 30 lives and caused massive damage and disruption. The picturesque fishing village of Portofino, near Genoa, a famed holiday resort on the Italian Riviera, was only reachable by sea after the main road collapsed. An emergency path opened to let residents out was deemed too dangerous. Trees covering the mountains in the Dolomites range were reduced to matchsticks, flattened by winds that tore through the Veneto region on Thursday. The canal city of Venice, on Italy's northeast coast, has also been flooded for days. Italy's Civil Protection Agency described the weather lashing the country this week as one of the most complex meteorological situations of the past 50 to 60 years. In other news, French President Emmanuel Macron expresses his immense pride that voters in the Pacific territory of New Caledonia have voted to remain part of France in a referendum.
Les électeurs ont pu choisir souverainement, en connaissance de cause, la relation entre la Nouvelle-Calédonie et la France. Ils se sont exprimés aujourd'hui, majoritairement pour que la Nouvelle-Calédonie reste française. Le seul vaincu est la tentation du mépris, de la division, de la violence, de la peur. Le seul vainqueur, c'est le processus en faveur de la paix qui porte la Nouvelle-Calédonie depuis 30 ans. L'esprit de dialogue que plus rien n'entamera.
The Pacific Islands of New Caledonia voted Sunday to remain part of France in an independence referendum that showed support for Paris in one of its many far-flung but strategic outposts. Some 11,000 miles from the French mainland, New Caledonia is home to a quarter of the world's known supplies of nickel, a vital electronics component, and is a foothold for France in the Pacific where China is increasing its influence. On the final count, 56.4% of people had rejected the proposition that New Caledonia become independent, a clear but smaller than expected victory for loyalists to the mainland. French President Emmanuel Macron expressed his immense pride that we have taken this historic step together in a televised address to the nation, adding it was, and I quote, a sign of confidence in the French Republic, in its future and its values.
Je dois d'abord dire l'immense fierté que nous ayons ensemble passé cette étape historique. Je veux aussi dire la fierté pour le chef de l'État que la majorité des Calédoniens ait choisi la France. C'est pour nous une marque de confiance dans la République française, dans son avenir et dans ses valeurs. Mes chers compatriotes, au plan politique, il n'y a pas d'autre chemin que celui du dialogue. Le gouvernement proposera aux forces politiques de Nouvelle-Calédonie de se réunir dans les prochaines semaines.
Despite being an archipelago of islands, New Caledonia is sometimes referred to in France as the Pebble and is home to about 175,000 people. Turnout was high for the vote at more than 80%, but there are fears the referendum could inflame tensions between indigenous Kanak people who tend to favor independence and the white population which has settled since France annexed the islands in 1853. Several cars were burned and a couple of incidents of stone throwing were reported late Sunday, local authorities said, but the vote was otherwise peaceful. Tensions in New Caledonia boiled over into ethnic strife in the 1980s, which claimed more than 70 lives. It led to the 1998 Noumea Accord, which paved the way for a steady devolution of powers, as well as Sunday's referendum and possibly two others before 2022. In recent years, France has faced protests and calls for independence in several of its overseas territories, which are a legacy of the country's colonial history and are sometimes dubbed, and I quote, the confetti of the French Empire. French Guiana in South America and the Indian Ocean archipelago of Mayotte have been rocked by major protests over living standards and perceived neglect. Closer to home, the Paris government also faces renewed calls for independence from nationalists on the Mediterranean island of Corsica, which have been rebuffed by Macron.
Coming up, Iran marks the U.S. Embassy siege on the eve of sanctions. An analyst says President Trump's election is a catalyst for women running in midterms. Ted Cruz rallies women and Hispanics in a final midterm push. Eagle News, Washington, D.C. will return shortly.
Join the EBC Family Fun Run November 18, 2018 at the Ciudad de Victoria Complex, Bulacan. Choose from race categories 1.062 kilometer, 2.5 kilometers, 5 kilometers, and 9.55 kilometers. Registration is ongoing. For more details, log on to www.eaglenews.ph/EBC Fun Run or call 784-7450, local 1162. You may also visit www.facebook.com/EBC Fun Run. EBC Family Fun Run.
This event is made possible with the participation of the following sponsors: Regent, Life's Simple Pleasures; Isuzu, your responsible partner; For Life, together building people; Mr. Gary Escobar; Salon Pass by Hisamitsu Philippines;
RY Graphics and Print, and in partnership with Maligaya Development Corporation and Philippine Red Cross.
Welcome back. You are watching Eagle News, Washington, D.C. Iran's annual rally to mark the storming of the U.S. Embassy and hostage-taking of 1979 had particular significance on Sunday, on the eve of renewed sanctions by Washington. Thousands joined rallies in Tehran and other cities, carrying placards that mocked President Donald Trump, wiping their feet on fake dollar bills, and engaging in burning the U.S. flag.
This year's 39th anniversary fell just hours before Washington was set to reimpose sanctions, including an oil embargo following its withdrawal from the 2015 nuclear deal earlier this year. Mohammad Ali Jafari, commander of the Revolutionary Guards, addressed the crowd from the grounds of the former embassy, now known as, quote, the Den of Spies.
ایران را تهدید نکن زیرا هنوز ناله‌های پر از وحشت نظامیان آمریکایی در تبت شنیدنی است و هنوز ناله‌های از سر ترس ملوانان شما و دوستان انگلیسیتان در آبهای خلیج فارس شنیدنی است.
The seizure of the U.S. Embassy by radical students was a key stage in the Islamic Revolution of 1979, leading to a 444-day hostage crisis that permanently damaged relations between Washington and Tehran. The students believed the U.S. would launch a counter-coup to return deposed Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi to power, similar to the CIA-backed coup that overthrew Iran's elected government in 1953, unaware that the king was already critically ill with cancer. Several of the students later regretted the incident, but for the establishment, it has become a powerful symbol of Iran's refusal to be dominated by outside powers, the key driving force of the revolution. Without the attack on the embassy, the revolution would not have reached its 40th year, said Jafari.
While insisting we should be normalizing the increase in women's political presence, Kelly Dittmar, scholar at the Center for American Women and Politics, says the election of Donald Trump in 2016 served as a catalyst for the record number of women running in the upcoming midterm elections.
The 2016 election seemed to serve as a sort of catalyst for women's candidacies this year, particularly Democratic, progressive women who saw the election of a Republican president with an agenda that they really did not support, and more than that, really feared would pull back on some of the policy progress that had been made over the 8 years prior. We should be sort of normalizing this type of increase in women's political presence by saying, look, this is yet another year where we're seeing gains for women, and that should be something we expect, not something we paint as a moniker of a single election cycle. The Me Too conversation has certainly facilitated some of the conversations we're having about women's political underrepresentation and why it matters that they are at these tables of influence and policy making, not just on issues around sexual harassment or sexual assault, but on a range of issues where the experiences of women have been different in the electorate and in our constituencies. 43% of Democrats or Democratic candidates for the U.S. House are women, compared to just 13% of Republican House candidates that are women. So that divide between how well represented women are in either party, both in the candidate pool and on the ballot, is also significant.
Ted Cruz holds a campaign event to rally the women's vote in Texas in the final days before the midterm elections.
3 issues that I think are front and center in this election. They are jobs, freedom, and security.
One thing that I love about Ted Cruz is how every time there's a barrier, he finds a way over it, around it, under it, above it. And if I ever come home and I'm frustrated, Ted is full of solutions. He's an optimist, and you don't look at the world in a gender-specific way.
One of the things I think that is very important that Latino families know is that conservative Republicans have the exact same values as these families, all my family members, and how it is that I grew up in San Antonio, Texas.
When we come back, Canada's I Am Joseph cast and crew share their journey to the EVM Awards International 2018. Eagle News, Washington, D.C. will return shortly.
Pep News, Linggo, alas 4 hanggang alas 5 ng